This is the Landmine single leg deadlift. This movement is going to be used to strengthen your posterior chain and balance out your hips without putting so much compression onto the spine so that you can become a better, stronger, quicker athlete. Now, how you're going to do it, there's 4 points of performance that you want to keep in mind, all right? Point number 1 is going to be to have the sensation felt in your glutes or hamstrings. 2 is going to be that you have control over both your foot and your ankle. And 3 is going to be control over your knee. And 4 is going to be control over the hip. So let's look at each of those things in the single leg landmine deadlift. All right, so I'm starting with the bar at my hip. So I'm going to grab it, pull it up, okay? The leg that's furthest away from this is going to be the working leg. The arm that is closest to the landmine is the grabbing arm, all right? So therefore the grabbing arm and the non-dominant or non-working leg are kind of the only ones moving their position. This movement needs to be isolated to the hip. Any movement that you're trying to isolate to the joint requires you to squeeze your glutes and your abs. All right, so make sure that your core is fully engaged before you start moving any loads. Then what you're going to do is control down in a hinge and press back up, okay? Looking at those points of performance, the sensation should be your working leg, felt it in the hamstrings and or the glutes. All right, so control over foot and ankle. We're looking at this ankle and foot, and what we're watching for is any shaking or imbalanced looking things. Right, so that was pretty good. If you saw my foot going like this a lot, that would imply that you don't have that control, which means you're not ready to move on or go up in weight. Next, let's look at the knee control. All right, so if you're looking at my working leg, it should be creating a bow shape. Right, this is what a bow shape looks like. You see how it kind of comes out to the side, and if you really just drew a line, it's more of an arched line. It's not a straight or cut diagonal. It's not like that, and then obviously not like that either. Right, so that knee is kind of coming out, putting me on the outside of my foot, keeping my ankle nice and stiff. If my knee's right, my ankle has a better chance to be right too. So, looking at it functionally, bow loading, and up. Cool? The last point of performance of this single leg deadlift with the landmine here is that you guys are able to control your hips. All right? Now this comes with a couple of different things. So first I'm going to show you from a head-on angle control of the hip and what that looks like. I'm going to take the weight off just because while I'm talking and such, this might be a little bit much. But basically what you're looking for is, does the hip rotate away from you or towards you or whatever? It should stay level, all right? The pelvis itself, if you're looking across that entire joint, all right? So just look at the deadlift really quick. From this straight on, doesn't matter if I have the landmine or not. Basically, if you're seeing my hips go like this, all right? If I'm reaching down like this, yeah, my torso looks good, but if you look, my hip has really opened up versus stayed in that neutral position. So open, neutral, all right? We need your hip to stay neutral and stay in control, so you need to be trying to always kind of keep your hips level and not letting them kind of rotate like this at all right? That's first part of controlling the hip. The second part of controlling the hip is your flexion and extension of your lower back, or that pelvic position or pelvic tilt, all right? So if we look at this more from the side now, as I do this movement, I shouldn't see excessive arch in the standing position. I shouldn't see excessive flexion in any position, all right? So it should look the same throughout the movement, right? It should not look like this, all right? That was where I got soft and you saw my rounding of the back take place, all right? That's because my hip is tucked underneath. I need to let my hip kind of pull back as I hinge, and as I come back to neutral, I need to make sure that I'm not overextending. Like we see a lot in the deadlift is that overextension. It needs to be abs engaged, glutes engaged, so that top position looks like a neutral spine, all right? That's controlling the hip. So if you can do those 4 things, you are ready to go up in weight, all right? If you cannot do those 4 things, you are not ready to escalate your weight in the next progression of the movement, all right? This is going to help fix things like low back pain, knee pain, and hip pain because of all the ranges of motion that it's really working and the tension that it's creating. It's really a beautiful movement that will excel many other movements. All right, things like walking, running, sprinting, deadlifts, anything where your hip needs to go into or out of flexion, it's going to help that because that's all it's doing, and it's doing it on one side as opposed to both sides at the same time, teaching you better control over that whole hip. Right? This is better than just straight up deadlifts because it doesn't put so much compression on your spine. It teaches you a more athletic position because it's not common for you to be in a bilateral stance when you're doing sport. And then if you're looking at balancing the hip joint through its force production per side, it's a single leg movement. It's unilateral, teaching you that control. All right? And you're going to get a stronger ankle. A stronger ankle means a better connection to the ground, which means better mechanics moving up, which means more athletic abilities. It's a great movement, and it has all this bang for your buck. All right? You are considered successful when you can control all 4 of those points of performance, and you can do 20 reps consecutively with about 25% of your body weight. Right? That, if you're able to do it with 25% of your body weight, chances are that you have great muscular control over your hips in a unilateral pattern, which is going to keep you healthy much longer and act like an athlete, and who knows, maybe even throw some speed at you.